One is, and I just had this made into a sticker because I love it so much. And this is something that people ask us about all the time. And it's one of the things that holds people back from doing the dreams they want to do. Fear is one of them, but it's other people's opinions. And so I had it made into a sticker. No one gets a vote on how you live your life. And I think it's really important to remember that when you're doing things that are outside what people consider normal, there is going to be judgment. It's going to come from family, friends. It's going to come from someone who you think is the most adventurous, open minded person you know. You cannot let that derail you because 10, 20, 30, even 50 years down the line, that person may not even be in your life anymore, and you will have missed out on that dream. Find your tribe. Find people that are doing what you want to do, pick their brain, study them, watch their videos, find them on social media, send them an email, ask them a question, find those people and study how they did it and go after your dream. And don't let anyone else tell you you cannot do it. It's your life and they don't get a vote. So that's my I guess my biggest thing.
Welcome to the We Get Outdoors podcast, YouTube, interview, where basically we get behind the scenes with just people who I'd love to share a beer, a gin and tonic, or a glass of wine with. And I've got a feeling that the couple we're going to be talking to tonight, I'm going to be doing it, fingers crossed, on the back of either their boat or my boat in the summer of 2022. So Jess and Will, welcome to this. It is awesome to see your background, and your background is on something that is making my heart flutter. So why am I talking to you in your beautiful boat in a marina in France?
Because we left the humdrum of our corporate lives and 6 years ago, and we've been too stubborn to never go back. So at this point, there's been we're doing everything in our power to make this life work, and we're smiling along the way.
And the other side of that story is that when COVID hit, instead of probably doing what most responsible full-time travelers do, which is hunker down and go back to what is safe and wait it out, we decided to take the biggest risk of our life and buy a boat and learn to sail while we were isolated in the south of France.
Just because I'm fascinated. We were talking before, and I'm going through this process of buying a boat at the moment, and I know I don't look it, but I'm actually only 18 years old. I've aged quite a lot in this buying the boat process. How did you find that whole thing of buying a boat? Is it as stressful as I'm finding it, or did you find it a breeze?
You're look 80 years old in the next 6 months.
So yeah. Wait till you get on the boat.
It doesn't end.
Yeah, it doesn't end. I think the process now, looking back on it at the time, the process felt really stressful. And I don't want to scare you or anyone listening, but since we did not know how to sail, it was clearly much more stressful after we bought it and got on it. And we were like, holy shit, what have we done? We have no idea which one's the head, which one's the cabin, it was also just overwhelming at that point that it almost kind of scared the purchase part of the boat out of us. We were like, oh my gosh, we purchased it, but now what do we do? Now it's really ours. Now we have to figure all of this out.
I mean, we were such novices, and we still are. So I'm not going to lay claim to having any sort of foundation at this point. But we literally bought the first boat we saw, and it was I'm kind of proud of that because I didn't waste time, but I'm not proud of it because there's things that I kind of wish I knew differently. But I still would have bought this boat at the end of the day, I think is what
I absolutely agree with Walt. When you said that, I thought, what? He doesn't like this boat? We love
end of interview boat. Done, dusted.
Right?
Exactly.
Like, okay, it's time to go have a fight in the head. It's funny because we being on a boat has been a dream of ours for a decade now. Will and I are very calculated in everything we do. We're huge risk takers, but we take our time and educate ourselves and learn before we take the plunge. So when we were living a stationary life back in Boston a decade ago, we went to our first boat show. And he was like, wouldn't it be nice one day to live on a boat? And I'm like, yeah, that sounds cool, but that's a pretty big dream. So fast forward all these years and we did it. But in the meantime, we haven't done a ton of research about boats and what we wanted in buying. We did do our competent crew training a couple years ago in Malta. We have been talking about it a little bit at that point. We kind of said, well, in a couple of years, we're going to do the boat. But COVID accelerated that process. And like Will said, we were back in France after being in Asia, returning because of COVID, and we're French visa holders, so we can legally live here. We were going to buy a ruin, a rundown house and remodel it here and teach our kids how to do that while we waited out COVID. And the long story short is basically this. I had been following a lot of Facebook groups and for sale by owner boats and all that stuff. And these things come through my feed all the time. And this boat caught my eye. And I was the one in the family the least interested in getting on a boat.
She gets the most seasick.
Yes. So I wasn't against it, but I never thought I would be the person that would be saying, hey, look what I found. I thought I'd be the person scrolling by it going, well, maybe he won't see this, And I told Will about it. And one thing led to another. We saw the boat.
We saw the boat that we wanted and the house that we wanted within 48 hours of each other.
No
and
way.
so we had this huge dilemma on our hands.
Yeah.
And eventually, it's funny because I was the most timid about getting the boat because financially it was just at the top of our range, at the very top of our range.
Yes.
In fact, beyond.
Maybe a little bit beyond.
And then and the house was not. But I really wanted the boat and she really did not. But she actually wanted to jump into the boat. I wanted to jump into the house for different reasons. I didn't want to blow our budget on the boat, and she wanted to go ahead and achieve our dream of being on a boat before it was too late, essentially before our kids took off for college.
And when he says too late, our goal was to have our daughter at least have a year on the boat. And, we're at a point now where she's got a year and a half left before she goes to university. And when I looked at the boat, after we did some research, even with the limited amount of knowledge we had at that point, I could see it was a really good deal. And the writing was already on the wall about people buying boats like mad, boat sales up 20%. You can't fly to another country to look at a boat if you see a good deal on it. And after many conversations, we came to the realization that if we did not buy this boat right now, that was underpriced and pretty much everything we wanted, and in the country we're currently in, the boat may not happen for many, many years. And that was kind of what kind of pushed us into it about a year and a half or 2 years earlier than we had planned.
Right. And then fast forward, 8 months later, because that's how long we've been on this thing, almost 9 months now. Because of COVID, because of all the lockdowns, because of, the limitations on what you can and cannot do, we spent this entire 9 months preparing ourselves to become adequate sailors, and knowing our boat and knowing how to take care of things. Partially.
We still have a long way to go. We definitely still have a long way to go.
Right. I mean,
it's the more we learn, the more we realize how little we know. It's one of those things. And I think this is one of those things where you're a lifelong learner. I don't think you hit this point where you're like, okay, I've learned everything. I don't need to learn anything else. I don't think that ever happens with sailing. There's always something to learn, which is actually quite exciting and interesting and intriguing about it.
Right. The idea of the boat is to do what we've done in our previous 5 years, 6 years by land-based travel, just via the water. So we can go to explore different cultures and societies and countries that we couldn't do before because we just didn't make our way that way because it was just too inadequate or too it was too difficult to get there if we weren't on a boat. So we have ambitions of sailing very long distances and to very unique locations. And the way that the boat is set up now, it takes a while to get a boat ready for sort of substantial cruising. You just don't buy a boat. Next thing you know, I'm taking off to the Caribbean from Europe. It just doesn't work like that. So we spent the last 8 months preparing the boat to do more than what it originally came to us as.
And I think some examples of that would be, because if there's people listening are like, well, what would you need to do? The boat was set up and had been used as a coastal cruiser in the Mediterranean for the past 7 years. So it didn't have a lot of safety equipment that you really need to cross an ocean and to do large, long passages. It didn't have a ditch kit, which a ditch kit is what you grab if the boat's going down, which you grab and jump into your life raft with. So we built a ditch kit. We were in the process of finishing up building a proper medical kit if we're at sea for several weeks. and something happens and we need to handle it on our own, and there's obviously no doctor nearby or no island that we can pull into. So things like that, upgrading our solar, making sure we have the proper navigation, all that kind of stuff it's been an ongoing process, for the last 8 months.
Yeah, and obviously you throw in the I don't know if it's a challenge, the opportunity of being as a family of four. It's not a lot of times you see couples doing this or people who are taking sabbaticals at either end of their career, but you're doing it smack bang in the middle of such important years as well for your kids in terms of education. So I've got so many questions around that. But has it been a massive change in terms of living in an RV and traveling as a family in an RV to living and traveling on your boat?
We'll let you know when we travel. No, I'm kidding, but
Massive.
It's been a huge adjustment.
Huge.
I mean, a lot for the good, a lot just is more been COVID related, but
Yeah.
essentially, we have more space now than we did in our RV, and that has been well appreciated by the kids, because as much as we all liked being able to almost like touch each other at night, this, I think that time had run its course.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
now we all have a little bit of space. We have a little bit of elbow room. We all have a place that we can retreat to if we need to. The word retreat, that sounds so weird to me. but we have but we have sort of a space now that, as kids are growing up, they have their private space, which is
and
necessary.
they didn't care about that in the RV. We could all reach up from our beds and kind of put our fingers together like ET. And they love that. They were younger, they were elementary and middle school age, and that was just magical. But we didn't hit the point in the RV where they were like, I want to get out. But luckily it kind of worked out that now, like Will said, I think they really need their own space. It doesn't need to be a massive space, but a space that they can kind of go to and have their own time if they want, even though they're not in it that much. It's been really nice. Now, to answer your question about like the difference in the transition, I feel like the only things that is the same between traveling in an RV, and for those of you listening, we traveled around Europe in an RV for just under 3 years. And before that, we slow traveled for like 9 to 12 months in a country for several years. I think the only thing, in my opinion, that's the same between the boat and the RV is they both move. They're not a stationary house. Other than that, it has been, like you said before, people are doing it that don't have children. A lot of people that are doing this are a lot younger than us as well. So this is a huge, not only learning curve, but it's mental, it's physical, it's the whole package. And it's been an interesting journey. It's one I'm really glad we did now, for sure.
It's interesting because I'm looking around here as we're talking, and I'm trying to assess. It's the first time I actually done this sort of calculation in my head, because the RV was 21 and a half feet, and it was probably about 5 feet, no, like 6 feet wide,
Yeah.
around there. So if you're talking like square footage, you're talking around 120 square foot, maybe around 125 square feet. And we lived in that for, 2.5 years. Looking around here, I'm trying to envision what the square footage is here, and I've never actually done that calculation.
It's 5,300 square feet.
No, but
it feels like it.
We have, I would say we have probably double that, if not slightly more than that.
I think probably close to triple. Maybe 2.5 times.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, I think so. So, it's a very small catamaran. It's a catamaran. So we do have a little more living space than a monohull, but it's a very small one. It's 38 feet. It's not the widest catamaran out there, but so, by catamaran standards, we're very small. And people will say, oh my gosh, 4 people live in that small boat. It's like, yes, we do. But if you see what we had before, you'd say,
castle.
Who died and left you money?
Right.
But
we came into this thing and we're like, it's so big. Look at all the storage. And someone can go take a nap if they want to, or go to bed early, and the whole crew isn't having to be quiet or whatnot. It was challenging in the RV at times, because like Will said when we were chatting before we started taping, that a lot of things we do are late at night. We're meeting with clients, or we're doing podcasts, or whatever the case may be. And in the RV, the kids would have to sleep through that. They just had to learn to be able to acclimate. Our son had some classes where he really wanted to take were at 11 o'clock at night. So on those nights, we all kind of had to accommodate. No one was going to bed early if they had been up since 5 o'clock or something like that. So we're definitely learning to adapt to the space. And this space is really working well for us. I can't imagine anything bigger. I don't really want the maintenance or the cleaning of anything bigger.
I could.
And I also don't
I
want
could
the
imagine.
expense.
I can
Bigger
imagine
boat, bigger
a little
expense.
bit, a little bit bigger.
It's true, because you said that with the RV too.
Of course,
It's like
everyone
we
wants
just
things.
had
Men
such
want
more
bigger
food.
things. That's just what men give us. That
Right,
space.
that's what I said
Allow
to
us to
you.
have that,
That's it.
Jess.
I'm not.
Right?
I'm not looking for a lot bigger. Just, I don't know. There's always some amenity that you wish that was just like there. But listen. This is what we could afford.
Yeah.
This is what we have.
Yeah.
And I'm not complaining, because we have, something that we never thought we were gonna get. So hey, I'm touched.
And Will and I were just talking about this the other day, that I think had we not bought the boat when we did, the boat would have not happened during our daughter's time, and it may never have happened, because we would have put the money that we had for the boat into the house, and then COVID's been quite traumatic on our travel business, which means we would not. I don't see that we would have anytime in the near future gotten the money to buy a boat in addition to the house that we had bought. And the house was in an area that was not someplace that was going to have a big resale value. It was more of a project-based house. So the boat was perfect timing, even though, most people listen to this and go, "What? You bought a boat with a travel business in the middle of COVID? Were you insane?" And there were times where it definitely felt insane.
There's still times.
There's still times that feel like that. Yes, for sure.
It exists. I'm not gonna lie.
It is a big jump. It definitely is a big jump, especially when you don't know, you know nothing about sailing. But we're up for the challenge. I mean, what else are you going to do?
So just describe to me then that moment where you can tell me where you were when you were sitting down, looking at each other, and on one hand you had the house, and the other hand you had the boat. What was it that made you say, actually, the boat is where we're going to head to? What was that decision-making process? What was that little thing that made you go, this is it? Was it the fact that you had Will in a chokehold and he had to say yes?
Right. Well, here's the funny thing. I'm just going to set the stage because I feel like Will's going to profoundly answer this. But at the time, we had just come from Japan. We were living in a co-working, co-living space, which was, and we had this amazing place to hike and run behind us, this amazing mountain with water running. Life was zen. It felt very comfortable and controlled, and we were all very at peace with life. We came back to France, and someone had a good idea. Someone thought they had a good idea. That's me. That we should live on a houseboat for a month while we look at houses to buy. And we got on this houseboat, and it was like this big. And Will and I slept on the kitchen table. No, literally, the kitchen table came down and we slept on it.
It was comfy.
We were adjusting back to this time zone. We were trying to figure out about houses. The boat leaked everywhere. And we called the owner. It was an Airbnb. And we said, the boat's leaking. It's okay with us. It's not ruining our stuff or anything. But, we thought maybe you'd want to fix it because, you leave a boat repairing, the repairs get bigger and more expensive, right? He just came and threw a tarp over the entire boat. So it was like we were living in a cave.
And his answer is what do you expect? It's an old boat.
It's a boat.
We're just like, okay.
So
I'm surprised we even bought a boat after that experience. And it was we had the hottest weeks. We were dying. And it was COVID. So there was no place to go and have a coffee and kind of work. We did find a mall that would let us, kind of sit in the middle of the mall. And, anyway. So I can't even believe after this kind of experience that we actually bought the boat. But I think we both knew. Did you have something you want to say now?
No, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
Well, I'm done. I think you can come in. You got something or
no? So the idea of seeing both locations within 48 hours of each other. First, we saw the house, which we were smitten by. We loved the idea of what it could become. It was already in great shape, and it came with a fully equipped wine cellar with 200 bottles of wine, which we were very excited to explore.
Right?
Yeah. So we were like, okay, so the boat's got to be good.
300 bottles of wine.
Right?
No, it had 2 bottles of Captain Morgan, not even close. But so we walked on board, and quite frankly, it was it's like you know what is a responsible thing to do, and then you know what you really want to do, and then once you walk on board, and we knew that this, this is it. This is
Yeah.
this. There was no reason besides we can't afford it that we shouldn't do this.
And just for the record, it was and I know Will said this before, it was at the top of our budget. So we could afford it, but we don't really like to buy anything at the top of our budget because that gives us very little wiggle room.
Especially when you don't know how much you have to spend after you buy it.
Right. Right.
I'm going to go tail now. You can stop talking. Let's change the subject.
Right. So anyone who's dreaming of a boat, just, dream of a hefty bank account first. But anyway, but it was really, seeing the lights of the kids' eyes sort of brighten up, realizing that, this can do something more than just, learn how to fix wiring, which there's wiring to be fixed here too.
Yeah.
It was more it was the idea of what can be. It's almost like the idea of buying a lottery ticket. What happens if you win? Well, we had a winning lottery ticket in our hand. All we had to do was buy it.
Yeah.
And we realized that if we don't act now, we don't know when it's ever going to happen.
Yeah.
And it literally was, when you're saying, what was the moment that we knew that it was a boat. It happened on the way walking back from this boat to the car.
Yeah.
And we realized, this is it.
Mind you, someone almost hit the boat at that moment. Someone in the marina, and we heard the owner go, "Ah!" And our kids started screaming, and I'm like, "What's going on?" Remember that?
I remember that. So
they didn't hit it,
but I mean, for both of us, she was the catalyst saying, "Let's do this." And in my mind, I was like, "Yes, I want to do this," but I'm trying to be responsible. And it just,
Will's a recovering accountant.
But I knew that, like Jessica said, if we don't do it now, it'll never happen. So, it took a matter of seconds, and then it basically took, enough just to convince us that we weren't being utterly stupid to do this. That was really the calming moment, was to say, are we stupid doing this? Because we knew we wanted it.
I think the scariest part was that Will and I, we know real estate. That does not mean we're real estate tycoons, but we have bought and sold and fixed real estate, not for several years, but in the beginning of our marriage and for the first probably 10 up until we started traveling. So buying the house, we knew what we were getting into. We knew what the work was. We knew what the return on the investment was, which was very low because the house was not very expensive. But for us, the return on investment was having this project with our children and teaching our children how to do things that we had learned in our younger years that we thought were of value, and just having this amazing family project. We knew that. It felt very comfortable and very safe, and we kind of knew the path and the outcome from that. The scary part was we didn't know sailing. We knew travel because we've been doing that for years, but learning how to sail, learning even just, it's a whole other language. Just the words that you use to describe things is learning something new. The systems, and then it's a different style of traveling. And are we going to miss the constant travel? Whereas, when we're sailing, we're not having travel. We're sailing to a destination, and then we're going to have the experience, the cultural experience that we've been so used to for the past 6 years. So it's amazing to me now, looking back on it and talking about it, that that we did not discuss it for weeks at a time and kind of, hem and haw, and what are we going to do? Because it was something so foreign and so completely new to us. And the tendency as humans is to go to what we know and what we're good at and what we're comfortable with. And that would have been buying the house for sure. And now 8-9 months in, each day it gets easier and a little more familiar. But I can sit here today and tell you, this is by far the biggest adventure we have ever taken on. And it is felt more scary and overwhelming than, let's say, the time that we bought a $500,000 house as an investment property, and we weren't sure if it was going to rent or whatever else. This was by far a lot less of a financial investment, but so much bigger of a learning curve and a lifestyle change. But surprisingly, we made the decision quite quick.
Yeah.
We did. We did all of our research before we came on the boat. So we knew, unless we came in here and it was full of mold that wasn't in the pictures, we knew it was a good deal. we knew what we were getting into. So it was just a matter of seeing it. So we kind of had the idea that if it did present as it presented in the pictures and the survey came out fine, that we were going to buy it.
You've got one up on me. I've never seen the boat I've bought. I've never slept a night on a catamaran. So I'm proper going in, jumping in with both feet.
I love it because I love hearing that there's someone crazier than us. It makes us feel normal, right? Do we feel normal now?
You're welcome. I think Will's in shock of what I've just said.
No, I think. Listen, I think
his accounting button's going off.
I have a philosophy in life that this sort of gets me through all the hard parts, especially the hard decisions. That my philosophy is: if someone else can do it, so can I. And that is without fail what gets me through any anxiety or any sort of drama of sort of things not going perfectly. Things go wrong. Things sort of don't always go as planned. And when you tempt fate enough, a lot of things will go wrong. And in our case, we've been doing this full time for 6+ years. And we've gotten into a fender bender in a non-recognized Soviet country where there was no U.S. embassy to fall back on, and no cell service.
Oh, God,
We've been stuck in a ravine in Turkey where we had to have a farmer pull us out with a tractor and RV. We've had a lot of
We've
things.
had a fire in the RV.
Right.
$10,000 worth of equipment were stolen out of the RV. We've been verbally abused in Norway. I mean, it's the
Right.
list goes on.
The nicest place in the world. But anyway, so
Happiest place.
Right.
But we've realized is that things can go wrong, things do go wrong, and things will go wrong, but everyone else survives, so screw it. I'm going to survive too. And at the end of the day, if you say I'm not going to do it, then that's on you. And I don't want anything to be on me. So I'm just going to go full force ahead.
Regret's a pretty powerful emotion.
Definitely.
And Will and I, because of the way that we've traveled, the first 3 years, we were immersed in local communities and made local friends. A lot of the friends we had around our age and usually had children, because that's what we were exposed to. One of our kids went to school in the local countries and the other one was homeschooled. When we transitioned to RVing, we were exposed to a lot of people who were retirees. And although we weren't always in campgrounds, we boondocked like 75% of the time. But when we were in campgrounds and we had interaction with these people, Will and I listened to them intently, and a lot of their advice and comments were, and these are people who are already living quite alternative to begin with. They're retired, they're living in RVs, they're traveling around Europe. They're doing something that most people that are retirees don't do. And their advice was, don't wait. You don't want to be my age saying, when I could do this physically or mentally, I wished I would have, yeah. And that was the big takeaway. Continually over and over and over again from the 65 and over, do it now because you will regret it. And so
I'll one up you on that one.
You want one up me? Awesome.
So when we first started this life of ours,
right?
No,
because no competition in this marriage.
He's like, I'm a calm competitive. I'm gonna one up you now
because this is something that you don't take credit for, and this is something that you should take credit for.
That I'm a badass.
Pretty much, but at the end of the day, when we decided to start this life of traveling full time, we knew that we were going to start homeschooling our kids, and Jessica was very afraid of doing that because she didn't realize that she was capable of doing it. She was like, we're not education professionals. How can we do this? And I looked at myself going, get out of here. I know really great teachers. I know really lousy teachers. You're not that lousy teacher. So, and no disrespect to teachers, they do a great job, but some people are better than others. Yeah. And so we've actually we started 5th grade with our daughter when we were starting to travel full time. And we started 2nd grade with our son. And right now our daughter's finishing her junior year of high school and she's going to senior year, and she's scoring to levels that is making her competitive for the top universities around the world.
Yeah.
And we're, it's not a matter of, trying, it's not a matter of like giving ourselves a pat on the back. It's a question of, if someone else can do it, so can we. And we didn't really try harder than anyone else. We just gave it our best effort. Yeah. And it just works out. So, as long as you're willing to try, you know, there's no reason why it can't happen.
Yeah.
And that's been our philosophy for everything.
And we usually try before we're ready. And we usually bite off more than we can chew, which is something we never learned from ever, 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 ever.
And don't want to.
We started, right. There was a point where I wanted to. I was like, damn, are we going to learn the next time? No, not only do we bite off more than we can chew, we add another bite to that, right? So we add another element, when we started, it was like, okay, now he's going to start working from home and we're going to homeschool a kid. Then when we transitioned to RVing, we're like, now we're going to homeschool 2 kids. And you know what? Let's start a business too. Let's add that right in there while we live in an RV, and then COVID comes and we're like, oh, our travel business is struggling. Why don't we just buy a boat? And Will and I are very frugal. We always have money in savings. We know how to tighten the belt. We know how to be scrappy, all that kind of stuff. But we do have a tendency to kind of take on more than we can handle. We always survive. The boat was the first time in those initial months where I thought, out of all these years, I thought, oh my gosh, we're really not going to survive this time. This time we really bit off too much because we had that extra element of COVID and France has been on pretty tight lockdowns. We lost all social, we lost all culture, we lost all travel, we lost our income. Here we are sitting in the freezing cold south of France in a marina with no humans.
I guess it does get freezing cold.
And it does get freezing cold, yes. With no humans on something we didn't even know how to fix the toilet on, And at that point, I felt like, oh my gosh, this is it. We have done it. We have just taken we've taken it a step too far. I don't feel that way now, but at the time, it felt much more massive than any other life transition that we had taken, for sure. I think you would agree, right?
Yeah. I mean, we have our goal is, and it's funny because when you said hopefully you'll be seeing us in December of 2022,
you're gonna have to cross the Atlantic with us.
You may have to cross the Atlantic to make that happen. Because we have a goal of making it to the Caribbean by December-ish. And and that is what we thought was going to be, of course we'll be ready for that. And at this point we're starting to realize that, maybe we're not ready for that. So we have a lot of preparations to do, not necessarily the boat wise, but in terms of experience wise.
Yes.
And so, we're going to spend the next couple weeks, months, challenging ourselves to get into the best, seamanship shape possible so that we can possibly do this on our own. If not, then we'll take on
either
a more experienced person.
Either crew or a captain.
Right.
And I think when we initially set out and thought, because we've been in Europe for several years now and we're ready for a change, we thought that we would be ready to cross because we thought we would have more opportunity to sail. And because of COVID and the lockdown, we've had months at a time where we're not able to sail, which has limited our ability to progress in our level of skill. So there's all these factors. I mean, everyone else is facing all these factors and kind of making decisions with, life in COVID and life, vaccine and, post-vaccine and all that stuff. So I don't think we're alone in this, but I've definitely challenged us to kind of think of alternatives and what other direction we can go in and how we can, learn quicker, that kind of stuff.
So talking, I've sort of got 2 questions, which I'm going to put in one and see how we go. Because obviously you talked there about when your kids stepped on the boat and you saw their eyes light up. And I'm just interested in terms of them, how do you feel they have changed as little humans as they're growing up from the RV to the boat? And then adding on, obviously, the complexities of COVID, where you've got a big change from into a boat for kids and for you guys, and then you've got the pandemic on top of that. That must have thrown up a few challenges for you as parents, you as a couple, and you as a family.
I'll grab the COVID one. You okay with that?
Sure.
I don't want to be depressing for people, but COVID's been really hard on them, on everyone. I'm sure on everyone listening, on us as well. I'm sure on you. Our kids are used to. There's this myth that traveling kids or homeschooled kids don't have enough social. It's not accurate. And our kids had an enormous amount of social in our life pre-COVID. It wasn't always kids of the same gender or the same age. Sometimes it was adults, sometimes it was younger people, sometimes it was teenagers older than them. But it was a variety of social. Once COVID hit and we were on the boat, all of that stopped. and it stopped really fast, like overnight for 6 months. That has been a huge, huge challenge. We have been able to see friends. We have a lot of friends that live in the south of France. We couldn't see any of them. We've since been able to see some as things have loosened up in the last month or two. But that aspect of moving onto the boat at the same time as COVID, having kind of all these changes in how we live and what maintenance we need to do and what we need to be careful of on the boat, and also having no social and completely changing our style of always having social and culture has been hard on them. We've done the best we can. We've done a lot of Zoom calls. We've, engaged more as a family, and we've had the key is we've had a lot of conversations about this, that this is not the world that, excuse me, we are all going to live in forever. And it is an awful time. And how can we understand this and process this and know it's not forever when it feels like it's forever? And for a 13 and 16-year-old, COVID feels like it's forever. As adults, we know it's not, but they do feel like, where did all the social go? I want to see friends. I want to meet new people. I want to go out and do things. So that aspect of it has been challenging. I feel like we're a bit on the upswing now because summer's coming, the vaccines here, things are loosening up. We are by no means back to the lifestyle that we had before. I'm hoping we'll get there in the next month. The kids are wrapping up school. We have some meetups planned with some other sailors and other travelers. We have a lot of traveling friends who have hunkered down in different parts of Spain that we'll meet up with. Uh, I wish I had something kind of grand and profound to offer, but just like anyone else and people that are living a stationary life, the children of across the world really struggle through this. And our kids are no exception. No exception.
Yeah, as far as sort of their evolution, it's really interesting because they they are well, they are kids, so they're very up for any sort of adventure challenge, whatever the case may be. They were super excited to get into the RV.
Ugh,
We had essentially a bed that went down from the very top. That was Jessica and I, where we slept, and then there were bunks in the back where the kids slept, and they loved to have their own area to decorate because that was for the first time since 2014 that we had a space that was their own that we owned. Because for the previous 3 years and change, we were living in Airbnbs and we were, living like stationary. Oh, I guess we were slow traveling in Costa Rica, Ecuador, and the south of France. And so we couldn't really customize anything to
yeah.
our liking. Um, and so once we got in the RV, they were like, I can do anything I want here. It's like, yes, but we want to sell this one day. So that caveat.
So don't paint the walls purple,
Right.
but you can
So
put stickers all over the windows.
but all that being said, sort of they've always been 100% into the adventure, into what we're doing, but we've seen them grow into people who are we're not raising many us's
No.
in the slight in the slightest, because we realize that that does no good for the child because it denies them who they're supposed to be, and it does no good for us because eventually they will break free and we'll be disappointed and like, how come you're not us anymore? But either way.
And I don't know if that's a term that you use in South Africa now, but mini me. Like people are often very proud that their son or daughter is just like them.
Yeah.
We don't encourage that in our family. It's not like we're sitting around discouraging it, but we're not saying, oh, you're just like me. We might make a joke like, oh, look, you walk like your dad does, or look, your smiles like your grandfather's. But as a human and who they are as people, we really encourage them to find who they are, and also to part of the reason we travel is for them to see how different people live, and all the different ways to do life out there, because our way isn't the only way and the right way. And maybe they might find something in southern Japan that they feel connected to, and that's their path or their calling in life. Sorry, derailed you
No,
there.
no,
Go
that's
ahead, go
fine.
ahead.
But when we got on the boat, though, they were both excited, and they knew that sort of what could be. But there was a bit, I'm not going to say trepidation, but there was a bit of a sort of hesitation because they realized that, yes, this is going to be awesome, but I'm developing into a person that is my own. So, for instance, because of COVID, we've been more on the lockdown side, right? We couldn't travel that much, which allowed them more time to develop their own ideas of what they're going to see themselves after the boat, because their lifetime here on the boat's not going to be forever like Jessica and I, because
Right.
we're going to die in this boat.
Right.
Hopefully not sooner than later.
And hopefully not at sea.
Yeah.
Right.
Of natural causes, on anchor. Right. This is pretty much, will probably be, if everything goes well, their final stopping ground as they live with us and then transition into their own adventures.
Right. And as they start seeing that sort of next stage in their evolution, especially my daughter, who's our daughter, who's going to university soon. She's starting to see, okay, what do I have to do to make that next step? And we have, Jessica and I have the ambition to go ahead and be adventurous as of today, like go off now and go sailing, go see islands, and that sounds great. But she's like, hold on, I have
this other goal.
I have this goal of doing well on my advanced placement exams. I have goals of doing well on my college entrance exam, SATs, ACTs, etc. And so she stepped up and said, listen, we have to slow this down a little bit. And it's easy for a child to want to please their parents, to say, yeah, whatever, it's good, we'll do whatever, because it sounds like fun, because this is what you've taught me to do. But we can see that they've developed into people who have personalities who, quite frankly, must be reckoned with. And we give them the authority, I guess, we give them the license to go ahead and sort of have that confidence in themselves that they will be heard.
To be able to say to us, listen, we need to slow down. And when Will says slow down, it meant we had to, it's a long story, but I went with Avalon to Spain for 6 weeks. Just recently, I just got back because her exams were in Spain, so that she could hyper focus and not be on the boat and sailing, so that she could accomplish her goal. And I think what's interesting, and often people ask us, but why, how is it that we've lasted out here so long and we have teenagers and they're not like, I hate this, I want to do this, I want to do this instead, is because we've always given them a vote back as far as they were old enough to have a rational opinion. And that means when we first started, we weren't going to go.
Which that varies by the day.
It does. But, when we first started, their thought might have been, let's live at Disney for a year. Obviously, that's not going to happen, right? But once we got to the point where we could give them a vote in what was going on and how to, we're a democracy, not a dictatorship, we really saw it was going amazing, but we saw the true growth in this lifestyle and in our family. Will and I, it was the kids' decision to go live in the RV. We weren't against it, but it was something they had wanted for years. And we said, once we get the money for it, and once we figured things out, we'll do it. When we moved to France, it was between France and Spain, and we let them pick. Will and I wanted Spain. They picked France. We said, we'll go to France. That's fine. We let them pick the location we lived in France. Now, we didn't give them all of France to pick from, but we narrowed it down to 2 and had them pick. And it has worked really well for us, because they have never felt that they are coming along on a journey that we've created. That's our agenda. They love this lifestyle. We have a lot of conversations about, do you want to go back? Are you unhappy? How's everyone doing? Let's check in. There's never a desire to go back. And they are travelers and they love the lifestyle, but they also know that if one of them was to say, this just isn't working for me anymore, we would come up with a compromise. We would not stop completely, because we are a family of 4, but we would say, well, we go back for 6 months on, 6 months off, or summers on and summers, something like that. And I think that's made the process really work for us. And it's also given them a voice. Like Will said, when our daughter came to us and said, I need to slow down a little bit, we were like, okay, we'll slow down a bit. But again, it's not a big deal.
I'm imagining, Jess, though, that there are people listening now who've they've pressed pause on this and they're pressing rewind as quick as they can to hear what you've just said, because there's some people whose mind has just been blown. The pair of you as adults let your kids choose the RV lifestyle, and they chose the country that you guys were going to live in.
Well, at the end of the day, we win anyway, because we wanted. We didn't care. I mean, we say we wanted
Spain.
We say we wanted Spain, but we just didn't want to go back to corporate life in Boston. That's ultimately what it comes down to.
There are people whose brains you've just really hurt. That they're just looking at their parenting now. They're looking at their kid and going, "Oh, there's a kid now listening who's rubbing their hands together and going, Mum, we've got to talk."
Well, it's interesting, because what is the number one complaint we hear from teenagers, or we've been told they don't feel like they're being heard. I remember that as a teenager. I really didn't feel heard, and I don't think you did either. And there's a lot of emotions and things going on with the teenage brain, and I recognize that. And obviously, if they came to us today and said, well, we want to go live in Paris and we want to live in a penthouse looking at the Eiffel Tower, we would be like, okay, that's not within our budget. We've lived in France before. I mean, it's not like they're dictating everything we do, but we do really make an effort to hear their voice. And if we can't come up with exactly what they want, to come up with a compromise within the family. And I think, we make mistakes too. We're not parents of the year, but I think it has been an amazing path for us to let them know that they have a voice in the family, and that we're willing to honor their goals and their choices as they transition into adulthood, obviously within some constraints, financial constraints and time and all that kind of stuff. And it's worked out really well for us. I can honestly say I love having teenagers. Is every day great? No, there's some days that are moods and emotions, but heck, Will and I have those too. I mean, it's not like, we're special and we don't have them as well. They have to deal with our moods and emotions, and we all live in a small space, and we do adventurous, very stressful, kind of pushing the limits things, which often heightens the emotions even more. But
It's funny because like as we talk to you, our kids they're hearing this because
well, I don't know, they're doing school,
but no, our son's like 10 feet away right over there, and our daughter's like right here.
They probably both have
on the
their
other
headphones
side
on.
of this wall right here. So if we're saying something that is false, they're gonna come out and go. They're gonna say, "What did you say?"
right. And we'll be like, what?
So we have to be very.
We have to be honest.
We have to be super honest on this stuff, because, or else they're gonna be like, "Really, we get that power?"
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I never do that.
Live in
What?
a penthouse in Paris. Sushi for dinner every night.
But obviously, the lifestyle
that's the glory.
the lifestyle that you guys choose, and obviously you've mentioned financial constraints, and you've obviously mentioned world towning and the business, but it's not cheap. The lifestyle that you're living, and we all know boats are not. You don't make money off boats; they suck you dry with boats. So there's a lot of people out there who. And my son came back from school this week, and the short version is he goes, "Daddy, I've learned something today at school." It's like, well, that's always a good start. You've learned something,
right?
It's like money well spent there. He goes, "Daddy, there are two types of people in this world. There are people who just use words, and there are people who take action." And I was like, that's quite a cool lesson for an 11-year-old to learn. And you're the kind of people who take action. But how do you juggle that all? How do you juggle living the life, having the adventures, but also bringing up your kids and financially surviving and thriving?
It's hard. Will said to me the other day,
you stumped me.
He said to me, "Do you think other couples spend this much time talking about things?" And I was like, I don't know, because there's a lot of talking that goes on in this family. There's a lot of, hey, you want to take out the trash? Wink, wink. Because we're always trying to figure out, how do we do this? How do we balance this better? How do we be more efficient? How do we save more money? How do we make this adventure happen? I mean, just yesterday we had like 3 things that we had to tackle. It took us an hour and a half. Just one of them seemed simple, like changing where our second vaccination was going to be, which was a whole project. So I don't know. Do you have an answer for that one, Will?
The answer is, for me, it's a question of what we show the world. There's what we show the world, and then there's what actually happens sometimes, because we have a very sort of publicly facing persona. We post a lot on social media. We have a YouTube channel. We're very active on Instagram.
What are you saying? We're lying?
No. But you
heard it here first.
We weren't going to say that on the podcast.
Now your kids are going to come out straight away.
You got to take this out.
But you can only share so much, to the point where where you just, it doesn't make sense. We do share the highs and the lows without question. I think sometimes we share the lows more than we should, but that's
Particularly in the last year.
right. But that's sort of hashtag 2020. But I think that when it comes to us, like when we're having a conversation, we know that it's work that has to get done. When we're having sort of planning sessions and so forth and so on, we don't share that we're sitting here all day planning what we're going to be doing, because quite frankly, it's like I sat in office all day, cry me a river. So there's no need for that. Uh, but what we do is we spend, if you were to map out a week for
It's
us,
90% work and 10% adventure.
I would say that's, it
Would you
depends
say
on the
that?
week. It could be 50-50, but we do work full time. Our
And
kids
then some.
our kids are full-time students, and so you can't sort of portray yourself to be a full-time adventurer when you're still trying to live in the other world as well, and being a responsible human being.
I think what
And you can't, sorry,
no, go ahead.
but you can't, unless you are 100% living with passive income or family money sort of coming your way. There's no way to sort of live that adventurous dream that everyone wants to, of constantly throwing on their rucksack and then saying what's next, and living the adventure. There is always some type of work involved, and we try our best to be as honest as possible, saying that well, it's not always rainbows and unicorns, but it doesn't always translate as such. When we do our work, we try and do it as efficient as possible, so that we can move on to the adventure, because that's what we're out here for. But we realize that it doesn't just come to you on a silver platter. You have to work for it.
Yeah, and I think social media kind of does, a disservice in the sense that not everyone is sharing the realities of what it's like. Will and I would work 99% of the time to have the 1% of the lifestyle we have, if it came down to that. I don't want to go back. I would never go back to our other life unless something traumatic happened. The kids wanted to go back, or we were unable to make money. And Will and I are on the same page with this. We will do whatever it takes to continue this lifestyle. We absolutely love it. Our family's thriving. Our relationship thrives. We feel so alive. That being said, you're talking about all the elements, the finances, the work, the parenting that goes into it. And I wasn't joking when I said it's like 90% work, 10% adventure. What we show on social media, and we do share the realities of it, is not, we're not working 40 hours a week. We don't have, 4 or 5 hours in the evening off, or weekends off. It just, there may be travelers out
When you
here.
say we're working 40 hours a week, meaning that we're working in excess of that.
Oh yeah, we're working more than that.
Right.
And that's not just only working on our business. That's talking about our finances, or saying, okay, look, I found this medical insurance that's less expensive. It's going to take us a couple hours to transfer it over. They want us to get a physical. It's helping our daughter sign up for her university she's in high school, but she takes university classes in high school, and which classes she's going to take. It's kind of the whole package. But it is long hours. It may not be for everyone, but most of the people that we meet out here, unless they're retired or have family money, or have kind of sold a house and are on like a 2 or 3 year sabbatical, or taking money out of savings, most of them are working pretty long hours, and they think it's worth it because of how they get to live. And I would agree. I would never want to go back to a 40-hour work week where I have my nights and weekends off for the swap of what goes with it. That makes sense. I hope that answered your question.
So we have if just one last thing, sorry. So we have basically, like, if you would ask me what are our time streams, like people have sort of revenue streams. Our time streams are homeschooling the kids, working on the social media, working on the business, working on the logistics of being a full-time traveling family, because life's not built for our lifestyle.
Yes.
You have to,
just getting the vaccine. It's a lot more difficult.
Medical insurance, everything else, postage, mail, all that. That takes work to actually manage that side, more than just, I have a house, mail comes to me. You have to sort of manage all that fun stuff. So we have, like, when we say we work in excess of 40 hours a week, it's because life is not built for digital nomads. It's getting there.
Yeah.
But it's not built for that.
Oh, and now we'll add in all the boat repairs, by the way. Right?
That's 20 hours a day, that is.
Right.
Right.
And then you added adventuring. So, and it's just, it is,
I don't want to make it sound bleak or awful, but if you want this, you're gonna have to work for it.
it's a lot of work.
That's a reality, and for us, the work is worth it.
And I think that for me is what's so refreshing about you as a couple and you as a family. There's no sugarcoating. You're very, very proud of the choices that you've made. You're very proud of the life that you're living, but you're also very, very proud of the work that you're putting in to ensure that life happens. And that for me is what really, really jumps out on your social media presence. So I think I've got a couple more questions and to wrap up. I think one question, which is going to put both of you on the spot, but I'll say that one. I'll make you nervous and then I'll drop in the other one first.
I'm not pregnant. I'm not.
But Will is.
Will is.
We've got so many people listening to this who are from all walks of life, and there are the dreamers, there are the action takers, there's the weekend warriors, there's the people who are 10 years behind you or 10 years ahead of you. What would be your message to all those people listening that you really would love them to go away and digest?
I have two. One is, and I just had this made into a sticker because I love it so much. And this is something that people ask us about all the time. And it's one of the things that holds people back from doing the dreams they want to do. Fear is one of them, but it's other people's opinions. And so I had it made into a sticker. No one gets a vote on how you live your life. And I think it's really important to remember that when you're doing things that are outside what people consider normal, there is going to be judgment. It's going to come from family, friends. It's going to come from someone who you think is the most adventurous, open-minded person you know. You cannot let that derail you, because 10, 20, 30, even 50 years down the line, that person may not even be in your life anymore, and you will have missed out on that dream. Find your tribe. Find people that are doing what you want to do. Pick their brains, study them, watch their videos, find them on social media, send them an email, ask them a question, find those people and study how they did it and go after your dream. And don't let anyone else tell you you cannot do it. It's your life and they don't get a vote. So that's my biggest thing. And my second would be start now. Even if you're 10 years, you said someone 10 years behind us, you can start now. Big dreams take planning. You can start living simpler. You can skip your Starbucks. You can sell a car and bike to work. You can move to a less expensive apartment. You can rent out a room in your house. You can skip the annual ski trip. You can, instead of buying books on Amazon, you can go to your local library. There's so many things. You can reduce your debt, learn how to live simpler, learn how to live like that adventure you want to have, whatever it is now. So you get your head in that mindset and you're able to save money, reduce your expenses, pay off debt. I don't think there's no better time than in the present, even if you're 40 and you're not going to do this till you retire at 65. Start now. Start with the mindset now.
Beyond that, it's beyond that. And
you don't like my comment?
No, it's beyond. I would say to add to that more than anything else.
Get out of here! It's my podcast now.
I would say to add, because my thought was it dovetails exactly what you just said. It's that you're never ever 100% ready.
Yeah, you're not.
You're if you're waiting for the universe to clear and everything to be perfect and for you to say, okay, I'm ready to move now.
Get happy where you're at because you're never leaving.
Right. There's always something that's going to stand in your way, some obstacle that's going to show up and say, oh, well, look what just happened. Now I can't go. You have to have the confidence in yourself that whatever comes your way, you will be able to manage through it. And, you, as much as you're not ready today, doesn't mean that you can't sort of find a way to deal with any sort of things that show up along the way. There was, and this is something that we've always had in our heads for the last several years, but we get reminded of it every now and then. When we were here at the port that we were at when we bought the boat, just before we said, okay, we're leaving out of Italy, and then we realized that COVID was messing up with that whole plan. But she said, "Why on earth are you doing all this sort of fixing up the boat now? Why don't you just do it along the way and just go? You find if there's something you have to upgrade along the way, then you just upgrade it along the way. But if you wait here and you sit here and you spend all your money here, getting ready to go, you'll never leave."
Yeah.
And you know, at that point, we just said, that what on earth are we
We're
doing?
leaving tomorrow.
No, we've been living this life for so long, and we know exactly what she's saying, but we got trapped into this idea that we have to be so ready to go ahead and sail around the world, and we're not ready, but we have to at least take the first step. And we just said, that's it. She's right. We have to take off, and we just did it. If people sit around, waiting for the right moment, just sometimes it'll just never happen, and
Yeah.
that's a shame.
There's a big element in bravery of what you're talking about, and I'm gonna test your bravery now. So before I ask the last question, who wants to go first?
Will's going first.
There you go. You might regret that now, though.
She's brave for me.
Yeah. So you may not feel it inside you, but obviously to a lot of people, you're quite extraordinary in what you're doing and the decisions you're making, the way you're living your life. So, Will, I'm interested in your views of what makes Jess extraordinary, and then Jess, what makes Will extraordinary?
No one's ever asked us that question.
Uh-oh.
You must love that answer.
We don't have an answer.
What makes her extraordinary is that she makes me. Well, it's
Don't take mine.
It's Jerry Maguire.
He's taking mine.
You complete me.
You completely.
It's quite frankly, what makes her extraordinary and is that we sort of pick each other up when we are down. Is that whenever I'm having a bad day, she's always there to either give me tough love or to give me the encouragement I need to go ahead and get myself back up and get moving. What makes her extraordinary is that she does that, and then she does not ask. It's almost like a moment to sort of get over a moment, but it does not live in perpetuity. So like we'll have a heated discussion about our ability to accomplish something, and we will sometimes disagree on things, and it's always
That only happened once.
it's always for the right reasons, but we do that
wrong.
because we know that sort of we have to get over these things, and sometimes it's tough love that's needed. And I think that sort of that's no, whatever. Yeah. What are you gonna say? What's great about you is that you fight with me. No. No.
In the modern world, it's called I challenge you.
Right. No, but she does challenge me, and I really do appreciate that, and I appreciate that sort of we raised our kids to challenge us as well, and she's been the driving force of that. To make sure that our kids have sort of this ability to sort of stand up for themselves and to feel like they're capable of anything. Beyond that,
Remember that B word I said in the beginning?
Yeah. He's trying not to say it.
He's trying not to say it because we don't even have to bleep it.
We all have our moments, but anyway, but it's funny because your mom, Jessica, always says that when you were growing up, you would always, jump into the pool and then ask if there was water. And
I would.
And that still holds true today. We still just take risks knowing that it will work out. And it hasn't failed us yet. And I'm glad that we're both on that same page.
Okay, my turn. I'm nervous. I am going. First of all, what makes Will extraordinary is he has some massive.
Go ahead.
Massive feet. No, he has some massive Latin dance moves. That makes him pretty extraordinary. He's Latino. Okay, I'll go a little deeper. So what makes Will extraordinary? I want to focus on only, I hope I don't cry. I get very emotional on the last, 9 months since we've owned the boat. As I've mentioned before, COVID, the last 12 months have been the hardest 12 months of our life together on many, many levels, from a financial standpoint, from some medical issues, from some trauma. A lot of stuff has happened in the last 12 months. And I don't think that I have necessarily been the best version of myself in the last 12 months. I've struggled through a lot of things. I've had a lot of doubts that I'd never ever had before in my life. I think COVID, don't touch me like that. I'm gonna start crying. He's putting his hand on my knee. I'm like, oh my God. And you made me lose my train of thought. You're trying to get me to cry.
That's gonna happen anyway.
And I have some time, there's been times in the last year where I've been like, wow, I don't even know who I am. This is very out of character for me. And Will has had to believe in things a little bit solo, and not with my 50% in there throughout the process, because I've had a lot of things that I've been processing. And I think it's extraordinary that after everything we've been through in the last year and I've been through, that he still has such a commitment and faith to how we live our life, our business, storytelling on our vlog, everything that we do, and how much he still believes in it in probably the darkest time that we've ever had. And I think that is really something extraordinary. It says a lot about him in his commitment in what we're doing, in our relationship, in our business, in everything. When I've spent a lot of time questioning things, not questioning stopping travel, but just questioning our direction. And I think it's normal to be questioning things in life during COVID. I think a lot of people question things, and I'm really grateful that he wasn't questioning the same things, and that he was really kind of the backbone there to kind of get us through this. And like I said, the last couple of months we've been on an upswing, which has been really wonderful. So
there's been moments where,
and he can really dance.
That's been you for me. So it's all good.
Yeah. And I think that's true. I think you've had some of those moments too. It's
right.
These last 12 months have really put our relationship to a test, and not in the sense that we're having issues in our relationship, but our ability to be there for each other through some really dark times. And I think that that's something extraordinary, because not every relationship and every partner is like that. So, and I didn't cry.
There you go.
We'll just edit some tears into this anyway. But
exactly.
Right. Some sobbing.
There we go. Some melodramatic music coming in there. We're gonna put a bit of we'll put it all in. But Will, Jess, I really just want to thank you so much for your candor, your honesty, your ability to show my son when he says there are people out there who just have words and the people who have actions. He talks about you two. So thank you so much for inspiring not only the next generation, but people like me who have taken on board your advice and gone out and bought a boat now to go and live the life that we all want to do without putting off tomorrow. And I'm 100% convinced that there are people who've watched this on YouTube, have listened to this, who are literally pressing stop now and are going to go make a commitment to themselves and their loved ones based on your honesty and your message. So thank you so much for your time. It has been eye-opening, entertaining, warmed my heart, made me cry inside, and made me smile all at once. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for asking some really great questions. You asked some questions that we've never been asked before, and now we're really going to have to go and get better answers.
You see, and now I know for sure we will meet up one day, on the water.
There we go.
We have to go out of our way now.
Well, he's going to have to cross with us.
Well,
done.
Well, buddy boat. Are you ready to cross an ocean?
No chance.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.